That makes
for
sense.
and left it there for the night, and then brought in.
The called order for the Public Market Advisory Commission for the City of Ann Arbor. Roll call.
All right. Commissioner, Hardy. Here. Commissioner Bogue.
Here.
Commissioner Nemeth.
Here.
Commissioner Young. Here. Commissioner Wolf.
Here.
Everyone is here.
All right. So next item C, approval agenda. You guys should have a copy of the agenda. Any changes, additions, comments, modifications? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. All right. Item D, first public commentary, which is, in this case, is limited to agenda items only. Is there a member of the public who would like to comment?
You'll have another opportunity later as well, if not now.
All right,
Okay.
So seeing none, we will move on to the approval of the minutes from the previous meetings. Received copies of those. Any changes, additions, comments, modifications? No? Is there a motion to approve?
I motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes. All right. Now moving on to regular business items, general updates. Stephanie.
All right. So the yearly stall payment and parking deadline has passed. It was June 30th. There was a few snafus due to just, the usual things getting lost in the mail, not going to the correct address. But all annual vendors are accounted for. We also did have some daily status vendors that preferred to pay yearly that did so. And just to remind folks that may not know, the reason that June 30th is the deadline is that that's the end of the city's fiscal year. I know it's always confusing for folks. It doesn't match up with the market season, but that's the reason for that. But yeah, there didn't really seem to be any disruptions because of the mail being disrupted at the market itself. So that is pretty much all taken care of. I don't know if anyone had any questions or comments. All right. Well, events. We had our first food truck rally of the season last night. It was very well attended. As I was saying prior to the meeting, we used every single chair and stool and table that we have, and there were still people sitting at the picnic tables across the street, as well as next to the market, and people brought their own chairs and tables. We had 14 different trucks and carts participating. We had a lot of favorites returning. We had a few new trucks. Everybody that I talked to did really well. We had a lot of people sell out of product, thinking that they were bringing enough, but then it ended up being even more of a demand than they had or had thought that they were going to have. We also had live music from local band Ain't Dead Yet. This was also the second year in a row that they played at the food truck rally kickoff. And yeah, we had perfect weather. It was really great. Yeah, it was a wonderful event. There will be 3 more this season. They're on the 3rd Wednesday of the month. The next one is August 21st. And we'll have probably a little bit more participation from trucks and carts the next 2 events. There was just some conflicts with some of our regulars due to art fair and other things yesterday. So we should have about 18 or 19 for both the August and September rally, and then we'll be back to about 14 or 15 again for October. So it should be a good number. I know last year we really tried to go as big as we could. Bigger isn't always better. But so I think yesterday was actually a really good number. Even though it was less than last year, it's still, we probably had the same amount of attendees, if not more, with less carts. So I think that was good for everybody, all the businesses involved. Yeah, do you have anything you wanted to add about that?
There was a lot of people.
Yeah, it was a lot. It's also a lot of effort that staff had to put in. It's a 16-hour day that we have to split up amongst the three of us, but we were able to pull it off.
I wonder, can I ask a question?
Oh, please.
Because it sounds like you said you also ran out of chairs and it was a lot of work. Is there something that could be, to make it easier and scale more? Is it a matter of more chairs? Is it a matter of something? Is there something you can think of that would be a piece of infrastructure, a change that would actually help to make that work better? Because it's a really popular event.
Right. I don't think we really want to go bigger, and I think that's the lesson. Like last year, I think we had 21 trucks and carts on this same event, and there was a lot of people that were like, this is too overwhelming, I'm leaving. You know, whereas I think this was busy, but it was a good mix of the things. So I think it's probably fine that we have as many chairs and such as we do, because there are a lot of people that bring their own stuff and are aware that that is a potential. But yeah, I don't think we want to go any bigger, I guess, is I think what we learned between last year and this year. But we're also, if we have space for people, we'll make it work, but we didn't have to turn anyone away. So. But good question. Any other questions or comments about specifically the food truck rally? All right. In terms of food trucks more generally, because of the demolition upcoming and the move to the office trailer, we've had limited space in the parking lot for actual market days. So we've only been able to have maybe one truck per Saturday, and if that, it depends on time of season, it depends on how many vendors we know we're going to have, because obviously first priority of that parking lot space always goes to our regular vendors, and it's an add-on if we have space to bring on food trucks. We have been working with Vegano Italiano pretty consistently, but they're not available for most of July, so the taco truck will be coming back starting on Saturday. They have a little bit of a bigger setup, and we actually sort of measured it last night during the rally to make sure this could be possible, but they will be back for at least the next 2 Saturdays. We also have had a bunch of prepared food joining us. Some of our mobile food vendors, including Pilar's Tamales, has been there pretty regularly, as well as a brand new vendor called Succulent Street Food, who does plant-based Mexican food. And they've been really successful the first 3 markets they've been with us, including last night. In terms of food trucks, there might be more people coming to Wednesdays. We've had some questions about it. We're in process on that. But that's sort of where we stand. We're pretty much telling people we don't have as much space as in the past. We really want to sort of see how the constraints work before we overcommit to people. So that is where we are with food trucks at regular market. All right, other events. Last Wednesday, we did have our 3rd cooking demo of the season with Karen Lanza, who is a community member. She made summer crepes featuring local market produce. Unfortunately for the schedule, it was during when Hurricane Beryl was joining us. But she still did have a small core of diehard participants in the program. But we hope to have her back in the future, because again, we cannot plan for the weather, but that day it definitely was a consistent rainstorm of 3 to 4 inches all day. But it did still happen. And then we have 2 more left for the season, one in August featuring Mary Baylog from Argus Farm Stop. And then the September one is still to be determined. We have a few people that we're thinking about, but we just need to do final confirmations on that. Other events, we had the Senior Project Fresh representative, Teddy Milgram from the Washtenaw County Health Department, come out last Wednesday as well. Again, it's probably fine that it rained, because they were already really limited in the coupon books they had available, because they had given so many out already for seniors. And for those that aren't familiar with the program, it is a coupon-based food assistance program that is able to be used for produce and honey only, and that is for qualifying low-income seniors to be able to take advantage. And we've already seen a lot of those coupons back, so we know people have been spending them already. So that's been really great. We do have a WIC distribution still scheduled for the end of July 31st, but due to lack of interest, we'll say, which is not the full story, but due to lack of participation in terms of farmers signing up for the program, we may or may not still have that event. To put it in context, only 7 growers in the entire state have signed up so far for the WIC program, and that is after some major changes to the program that we had very little to do with, unfortunately. But yes, those are coming up. We also have had the Emerson School robotics team. They just did a demonstration during market yesterday. Another fun way to get more students involved, get more kids involved, and it worked well because we had a bunch of camps coming through market yesterday as well. But they did 2 live demonstration events. The last one was in June. And then other upcoming events include more kids programming in partnership with the library, and other live music and community groups as scheduled in upcoming market days.
Did you want to introduce this?
Yeah, exactly. And there is a big event coming up in the end of September. It is an event that we are partnering in again for the 3rd year with the Office of Sustainability and Innovation. So we wanted to introduce Azella Markgraf here, who is the lead on that from OSI and is the local food coordinator that we've been working very closely with on this event, as well as the Sustainable Business Coalition. So if you do not know her, she's over here.
What is the name of that event?
It's the local food festival, 3rd annual. And the date is September 26th. It's a Thursday. So it should be the week after our September food truck rally.
Now, is that the one that they used to do on Friday night?
It is in the same spirit of, but it is a very different group of people involved. So yeah, that was the homegrown festival that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So it was inspired by, but it is a different sort of animal, but similar. And it is us, OSI, and Argus that are the 3 lead organizers of the event. So.
Thanks for coming. For having me.
And I should mention too, OSI has been at every Wednesday market for the climate interns, and they've been doing a fun set of programming each time. This week's was food waste, and I got to spin the wheel to answer a food waste trivia question. But they have a presence all Wednesday markets as well. So, any other events I should mention? All right. Well, I think that is a good overview of the events that are upcoming or that have happened or that are in process. Any other questions or comments on that? All right. Okay. So we can move on to vendor updates. So we've been getting some questions about when the stall move up is happening. That should be, we don't have a date yet, but it should be in the same time frame as usual. So September sometime. For those not aware, that is the time in which vendors gain an annual status, or annual status vendors can gain an additional stall, up to 3 stalls, or change their stalls. So that is upcoming. We're not sure exactly, how many stalls are available yet. We still need to assess that. But we did have a vendor who gave up their annual status this week. So we know that there will be at least 1 person from the producer side of the list moving up, but more information forthcoming about that. And then also, I wanted to just let folks know that there was an incident that had happened back in June, and it is being dealt with at the higher-ups of the city according to market rules. And if you have any questions about that, we can talk about it offline or later on once we know more information as the process has progressed and completed from the city. And in terms of vendor updates, we are at the point of season still where we're sort of being very cautious on letting new people in. But since this vendor I mentioned has given up their seniority, we may have space for 1 more vendor to join this year, but we're pretty, I think we're pretty good on the amount of vendors that we have for the season moving forward. So probably not going to open that up again until next season, with the exception of maybe 1 vendor that we have that has been waiting for space to open. And that is all that I have on vendor updates. Are there any questions or comments? All right. So facility and repairs, just like any other season, we have issues that pop up from time to time, whether that is outlets that are no longer functional, outlets that are making it so that fuses blow during market if we put two vendors on the same circuit, or, spigots that won't stop spraying water everywhere, the usual fun market stuff. And we've been working with Park Ops to resolve those things. And I know also we had talked about in the past the bird netting. We don't have any more updates on that, but that is still something that we're thinking about and hoping that will happen in August, which was the time that the ornithologist recommended would be safe when the birds are no longer nesting in the roof, to move forward with that project. And then we talked about before how the gutters have been cleaned and we're moving forward with that. And we had a recent power washing. But again, a lot of regular facility stuff and repairs has been swallowed up by the demolition / renovation project, which we'll hear about in a moment. But we are still paying attention to the smaller details as needed. All right. Any questions or comments about facility? As I said, we will have more time to talk about the larger project.
Okay, so I think what I want to say fits in here.
Okay.
I was just wondering if the city had anybody that helps with like maintaining the parks and stuff. There's areas all over the market, namely behind my stall, right there on Detroit Street, where it comes out, right there across the street from the new construction project. There and over behind the pod, towards I believe it's a market. It's called the Market Building, I think, the 3-story building over there by the old office. And then just along that side too, they put all these flower beds in, and then there's weeds growing in them, basically. And a lot of trash, just wanted to mention that. And I didn't know if there was something that they could put I don't know. I just want to mention it because I don't know. It could be one of them things with everything going on, no one noticed it, So I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, and I think that's a great question. I know the rain garden side of it is being maintained by staff from Feral Flora that they contracted with, but I have the same questions about the other side of the market, on the 4th Avenue. I'm not sure exactly whose jurisdiction. And I was told in the past that Republic Parking was the one that was supposed to be maintaining the weeds sort of like next to the area you're talking about, but I'm not sure if that's correct or, what the status is. But yes, that would be really, really nice to maybe figure out more information about that and move forward towards a solution. But thanks for bringing that up. I think that's a perfect time to ask about it. All right. Any other questions or comments about any aspect of the facility grounds? All right. Great. So the last general update that I have is just to give you all an update about the construction projects, not ours, that will be coming soon, but the construction projects at 330 Detroit Street, across Detroit Street from the market, as well as the 121 Catherine development. So 330 Detroit Street, this past week we haven't had as much conflict with them with parking, because we've been having issues for those that have been here for a few months with the staff at the job site parking in our spaces, making it hard for vendors to access their stalls, not being very understanding about when vendors need to get to their stalls. So I noticed, I think that now parking is open inside that development. I did notice some of their staff going under the building, so I'm hoping that that was what was happening. But in the beginning of July, we were having some issues with that again, even though we've talked to the developer multiple times. We've had other people from the city speak with them, but I'm hoping, I'm cautiously optimistic that that is resolved, at least on the parking side. But that development continues to go up. There's a big crane there now, you may have noticed. But then there is also the 121 Catherine Street construction. Unbeknownst to us, they sort of closed off part of 4th Avenue, and with that took away 5 street parking spots for the footprint of that construction. I've noticed it's mostly so the dump truck has access to going into the site. So I'm hoping that it's, not a super long-term thing, but it probably is. But that's just something to be aware of if you're coming from, points south and west, turning onto Catherine. There's a little bit less of a turn radius. Trucks will probably have to go the other way, Kingsley to 4th, to have a little bit more space to turn on those tight corners. I know it makes it a little tough for folks accessing as well the county lot for our overflow parking, with the same situation, hard to maneuver a truck when it goes down to 1 lane right there. So that's just something to be aware of. We don't know much about that project other than, it's going to be a 6-story building. They have been constructing it during market days, which again, I believe O'Neill is the lead on that. But I just wanted to give people updates that there has been a little bit more disruption to parking and road access in and around the market. And more information as we have it available on both those sites as well.
For the Catherine Street project, are those meters also blocked off on Saturdays, or do they open them up?
They've bagged and it is a safety issue. Like it makes sense the ones they cut off, because they had to make it down to a 1-lane road because the fence is out into the other lane.
Okay.
And I think that is maybe something that they had announced prior. It just wasn't necessarily on our radar in terms of just like a Wednesday market. Was it 2 weeks ago or last week even? Yeah.
I think it was when you were gone, they just started putting barricades up.
Yeah.
You were there one day?
I believe that was last Wednesday that happened.
Yeah.
So this is very new. That's why we're talking about it. But no, it is not something that can be taken away during market day, as far as I could tell. So.
I saw too that the Braun Court is now, they just went through city planning, and so they're another, I think it's a 6-story thing just north of that one too, and that one's going through the process now, but that will be starting up soon. So it's going to be a very busy construction season in that area for a while.
Right, and I hadn't wanted to announce that one until it was officially greenlit. But it will be 7 stories.
Oh, 7 stories. Okay.
7 story, yep.
Off by a story.
And it will be directly up to the sidewalk, as far as we know. But again, they just had a public hearing with the developer last week, but nothing has moved beyond this design review process, as far as I know. But yes. And if they break ground on that, they said it won't be before next summer. But yes, we will definitely be monitoring that closely. And I plan on sending the video of that meeting around to vendors next week.
Great.
Any other questions or comments about construction that is not our project?
The one day the county lot was closed a couple Saturdays ago, just so everyone knows, they resurfaced it Sunday night. It was resurfaced Monday morning. I'm trying to figure out who to contact to get a code in the future so that we could go in, because it was obviously empty all that Saturday, and that was very frustrating. So sorry about that. They did not give us a heads up, but I will try to find who to talk to so that we can get a heads up if they resurface it in the future again. But that's why it was closed.
And just to clarify, that's owned by the county.
Yes.
We just use it because it is open and free on the weekends. And we have had issues in the past in which the city only had a limited amount of information available about closures. But yeah, so this is sort of an ongoing thing that has bubbled up again. But yes, hopefully we'll have more information soon.
Just nicely resurfaced.
It was resurfaced the following night?
When I came
Okay.
Monday morning, it was resurfaced.
Because Saturdays seem to
and
be.
Sunday morning it was not, so one could assume. Yeah.
Middle of the night.
I didn't see it happen.
Yeah.
It did.
It just seems odd that it would have been closed Saturday for that.
It was closed Friday night through Monday night.
And if it's an event, we always get notifications of closures, but since that's not what it was, we did not receive a notification, because I don't think the city was given one either. So, but yes, can be frustrating. All right, any last questions, comments about that agenda item. All right, so the next agenda item is the transfer of seniority for Nemeth Orchard. And this is one we had tabled last month because we didn't have quorum to vote on it. And Layla Nemeth is here representing for the transfer. And I'm not sure how you all want to go through with this. Do people need a background recap about this transfer? Do you want to just jump to the vote? What do you think?
I wasn't here last time, but I did watch through the videos, and so I've got an idea of what discussed.
Okay. Yeah,
Same.
all right. Well, if you
All
want
right.
to call a vote.
So do we call a vote? So all in favor?
So I just want to, because we have those conflict of interest
Okay.
bylaws, so.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So Jeff won't be voting.
Yes.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're
Yeah, we
recused.
talked,
So
no, I know.
yeah. Okay.
I just
We
want
talked about
that.
that last week.
All right, so the four of us then can vote. Okay, there we go. So all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? No one. So passes unanimously.
Okay.
Welcome to the market.
Well, congratulations, Layla. Just want to say she's been here for many years. It's just official now. So, all right, fantastic. And then the last item I had to discuss before we get to the presentation is that there will be the rapid market assessment happening from MIFMA on August 3rd during Saturday market. What that will look like is a dot survey that all participants may answer, but I think it is to be geared more towards customers. And then they're also going to do a market count, which involves sort of estimating the amount of traffic that comes through a market on that particular date. We had been discussing what we want those survey questions to look like. And there had been some questions that folks had asked at the last meeting that I wanted to just give answers to those questions. We did talk with Jenny Radon, who is the MIFMA person in charge of the RMAs, and she had said that it needs to be no longer than 5 questions. And that is just sort of like specific questions. Sub-questions can be really confusing in their experience. And that it is just much more straightforward to just have the 5 questions to make them as straightforward and simple as possible. And also, you know, we can definitely build upon questions that we had asked in the past. But through us looking through the records, we realized the last RMA was actually in 2016. And the 2019 survey was actually a market-led survey. So it's actually 2 different sets of data that do not necessarily overlap, which is something that, you know, Hannah and I learned in a recent conversation about this. So we had settled on sort of the 5 questions being, you know, what is the biggest barrier to attending market? You know, that could be anything from transportation difficulties, date or time, their personal schedule, pricing, selection of products, anything else. We'll be including that. We'll also be including the question about how much do people typically spend at the market, which can be really helpful to have a little bit more understanding about consumer behavior at market. And then related to that as well is what products are folks most interested in coming to the market. Right, all things that are very, very important questions. And then there was 2 more questions that are not on this document.
So,
And yes, the 2 more questions were,
what was the reason for you coming to the area today?
right, yes,
Right.
yep.
Just-
So to know if it's
Right.
market-driven traffic in the broader Carytown neighborhood.
Right.
And then one more that is also escaping my memory. I apologize.
Is it about the improvements?
It is not about the improvements.
It was the required question that MIFMA
It was
always
a
asks
MIFMA required question.
that I am no longer recalling.
And I'm sorry.
For some
We
reason.
did take your edits into account,
did.
though, Lisa. In the MIFMA meeting, they're on this thing. I see them right now.
It just didn't all get saved.
Are these the same questions that were asked in 2016? Because were we sent the 2016 survey?
It was the 2019 one that the market had run itself.
Right.
I don't believe we have access to the.
MIFMA nor us could find the 2016 survey results. I
Okay.
think both organizations have gone through some
Okay.
changes since that time. So it was the 2 required questions and then the 3.
Okay.
Minus the capital improvements question, given that, not to skip ahead, things
Right.
won't be happening for quite some time and there won't be a direct way for people to funnel their ideas into something productive.
Plus,
That's definitely
it
a
seems
question
like-
we could ask at a later
It also seems
date.
like maybe a priority with this survey should be finding a way to like have a transferable drive or something like that so that organizations can hold on to their data for more than, for at least a decade.
Lumia is organizing our digital files
Okay.
more than I could have possibly imagined. It's really quite lovely. So
Because that seems like a pretty major, like,
that
oversight
seems
to
rough.
somehow
Yes,
lost.
I agree. Yes.
But I think there was more of a
results.
confusion in that we had thought the 2019 stuff was them, and it was not.
Right.
It was ours. So we weren't even sort of comparing
It
those
was-
at all in the first place.
Right. But it would be nice to know what the 2016 one was.
We do have the report.
We do.
So that should
file.
include the questions then.
This was long
would
before
be good.
any of us were
Right,
involved,
but if there's
so I
a-
am not sure.
Report, it would include the.
You would hope.
I can take a peek as we
Okay.
keep going here.
Great.
But
And I think you're asking this question because it'd be nice to have some comparative
That's what I
data,
mean.
right?
Yeah.
And to know like what was asked and what the,
What's changed? What-
you know,
yeah.
if we were trying to know, are people spending more or less, especially with pre-post pandemic things. Or,
We can definitely compare data. It's just whether or not we'll have the same questions asked at the
right.
front end.
Which is why it would have been helpful to know what the questions
Right.
have been. Yeah.
Although, a lot has changed at market since 2016. So it also just depends on, what is most important for us to capture now as well. We had this conversation with MIFMA, and that's the thing, is that they have to have their 2 questions, and then we had 3 that we could add on. And I think they're very similar to what was asked prior, if not the exact same wording. But we can update you on that.
And one of the questions that I had, especially about the produce question or what are you buying at market, are people going to be able to choose more than one, or are they only given one sticker and they can?
stickers galore.
Okay. All right. So they can pick
I did
multiple
find the
things.
questions. The only one that we were changing, and the other MIFMA required question is how many people are in your party
That's right.
Oh,
That's what
today.
it was. Yep.
So that's the same as
It
2016.
was how many adults are in your party specifically.
How much you will spend was 2016. How much you will spend at other downtown businesses. I think we're changing that to what's the reason to pull more of a, does the farmer's market draw people?
Yeah.
How often do you shop at this market? That's another question we're asking. Correct, yes.
A version of it, yeah.
Yeah, and what is the best way to share market news with you? We are not asking. And that was asked in 2016.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out too that the change in the wording, that comes specifically from MIFMA. They said, we no longer ask it this way, we ask it now this way. So I guess that's as close as we can get.
Mostly the same. We can compare.
And are these going to be on big poster
I would assume
boards?
so.
And yeah, the only other thing I'd say is your number 1 question was a negative question. I would start with the positive. What are you going to
What are we doing
buy? How
wrong?
much are you going to spend? Why did you come? Instead of the barriers.
I'm not sure what the order will be. It's probably going to be the MIFMA 2 questions first. That's just what I had on our note sheet.
That's great. I just wanted to reiterate the positive first.
Right. But yeah, August 3rd, coming soon.
And do you use the data for that in your decision making in terms of what people are buying? Does that influence and guide what people to take on or what things? Is that useful to you for your work in day to day?
I mean, it probably depends on what the answer is. If it's produce, that has no impact because that's what we're prioritizing already.
But I guess are you using the data from previous years to guide your current decisions?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard because the landscape again has changed a lot, with COVID and everything since those questions were taken. I mean, we definitely take into consideration people's feedback, but I'm not sure how directly because it's not necessarily, is it a representative sample? I'm not sure, is the other question. I don't know how many people they're asking per survey. Or.
I guess I'm just trying to make sure that we have some, it's like collecting data. You collect data so you can do something with it. Right. And so trying to figure out what we're going to do with it, making sure we've got it, who does it go to, and how do we store it, how do we disseminate it, how do we use it. And that if we know the questions, but now, and we know we'll get results, we'll get numbers, but what do we do with those? And that's just as important as what we collect, because if we don't use it, then... so making sure that we have a plan that way, it seems like it'd be worthwhile.
Right, well, I mean, it's always helpful for reporting purposes, right? Like
so
when the city asks us, or, when I make the annual report, the data goes in there. And it's also important to remember we are also part of a farmers market promotion program through the USDA right now. That's the lead on that is Michigan State. So they'll be getting, sort of parallel data, but with a little bit more of a focus on the marketing piece. And the goal of that is specifically to bring more people to the market.
And is this MIFMA survey taking place throughout the state as well at other markets?
Not all at the same time. Hannah won the raffle at the Michigan Farmers Market Association conference. So the prize was this rapid market assessment.
Ooh.
So
Good analysis happening.
Yep. And she also won the hand washing station at that same event. So very lucky.
We're going to send Hannah to all our conferences.
It was a very lucky and helpful day.
Yeah. So, all right. Any last questions about that or comments? Well, if not, then we can gear up for Adam's presentation.
Hi everyone, Adam Furco. I'm the park planner for the city and a landscape architect here. And I've come to kind of give a update on kind of what's happening with the market building, what we've been doing since the last time I came here, which was in the February meeting. So I'm going to run through just do a quick overview of why we're here. We've set up temporary operations, as you all know, in the center of the lot. So what was entailed through that? We're working through the demolition of that building, so giving an update of where we are, and then the visioning component and where we see this going in the future. So I'll kind of run through my presentations and our presentation here, and then happy to answer any questions and discuss as you see fit. So last spring, we started seeing that there was a gap between the sidewalk and the market building. Typically when we see this happening, we assume that there's a water issue that's washing out the subgrade below the sidewalk. We engaged with Hubble, Roth, and Clark, so HRC, to do a forensic exploration. They have civil engineers, structural engineers, and architects on staff. So we had them come out to the site to evaluate what was going on. Unfortunately, it was determined it was not water that was going underneath of the sidewalk. Rather, the foundations were compromised. So what happened is the CMU blocks that were originally installed when this building was built in 1984, the contractors did not grout the cores of those. And what happens over time is cinder blocks, they break down when salt hits on them. So as we salted the sidewalks over the last 40 years, eventually these deteriorated. And when we excavated that corner, we could see that we had sections of the foundation that were actually missing. So we were able to jack that into place, and we had to do kind of a cost analysis of what was happening. The construction estimates for fixing the foundation were very high. The structural engineer that did it, they told us that we would need to vacate the building by May of this year, which gave us enough time to start planning to get our operations out of that building and start planning forward for what needed to be done, whether it needed to be fixed or we need to look at demolishing the building. We had additional architectural analysis done on the building, and there were many issues that were going to be coming up over the next few years. And it was cost prohibitive to do the repair, and we needed to take the building down. at the same time this was going on, and then we're still going on with some of them, there are 2 other plans that kind of factor into what we're going to be doing here. So we were doing a Parks ADA transition plan. So we hired a consultant, Altura Solutions. They're out of Texas. They're one of the best at ADA, and especially in park spaces. So they evaluated every park, every nature area, every facility, and the farmers market being a park was included in that. What we ended up finding, we had around 2,000, we call them barriers or findings in the parks. We have 163 parks in the system. Where we came down to is this is going to cost roughly $19 million, and we've committed to do that over the next 30 years. And this is filed with the Department of Justice. We keep up to date with what we're doing. We've set a plan forward to move forward. So when we're talking envisioning coming up the market, we have a whole file on about the barriers there. And there were significant amounts, as you could probably know, just by the terrain itself and the slopes. So we do have some issues out there. And City Council did recently adopt this, I believe, at one of their April meetings. So this is now part of Parks policy moving forward, and we're tracking all of the barriers and things that we do as we fix them. The second component that we're working on, and it's really ramping up now, is a Parks asset management plan. So what we are doing is we have hired a consultant to come in, and they will do an assessment on all park assets, properties. It's all of our amenities. It's our nature areas. It's our parks. It's the farmers market. It goes to structures. It goes to bathrooms. What it's going to do is it evaluates it and tells us when the end of the life is, what the condition currently is, when we'll need to replace it, what the cost of replacing that is, what are some funding opportunities we can have, what are some operational things that we can do from a maintenance standpoint to extend that life. And what we're going to do, so this project will take place throughout this summer, and then it will conclude next July or August, I think is where we're at. And we'll have a really nice model at the end where we can start looking at our facilities and see what needs to come about and change. So what I mentioned earlier, we had an architectural assessment of the market building done. We're essentially doing that as a park scale. And the farmers market, while we did the building as part of what we did already, we'll be looking at things like the shed, the stalls. We'll be looking at the gutters. Stephanie mentioned them just a little bit ago, the circuit breakers, the spigot. We're going to be looking at all of that. So that is all going to be taken into account, which will help us inform as we kind of move through this process what we need to be doing at the farmers market. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about quite a bit of what we have done since I was here last time. So as you all know, we have moved our temporary operations to the Sandlot. What that involved was we put the construction trailer out there. It's a construction trailer. It was the closest we could find to an office space that met the requirements that Stephanie and her staff would need to maintain operations. We had portable toilets out there. You've seen the new Throne toilet room, so we have that available for the public. And it was incredibly hectic on our end to make sure that we had this done and we didn't impact market operations. So there weren't closures. We had tried to get all this done before the Wednesday market started. And I mean, I know it was tough at some point. It was difficult. But market staff, I mean, they were incredible. Stephanie, Hannah, they really kept things going as we went through this. And so they've really minimized, I think, the impacts that would be felt if we didn't have these temporary operations in place. We have fine-tuned things over the time. We've done things, we've learned as we go through. So the bottom left is when this trailer was being put in, and it was probably one of the hairiest situations over 2 days. The first truck couldn't fit in our parking lot. So we had to drop the trailer on 4th Avenue on the brick pavers. And then the next day we had to come out and move it. As you can see, it was too big for this truck, but they were able to kind of get it into place. We have had them come out multiple times to level off the trailer, so stuff in your hand weren't rolling to one side or another. We have put up banners to indicate, so we've tried to make it less look like mobile mini construction trailer and more like the farmer's market, so we have banners. We've worked on wayfinding, really trying to point people in there, and I think we're to a point where I think the community, the vendors, I mean, everyone's been really great, and I know it was stressful, but we're starting to have an understanding of what's going on, and there's less confusion out there. We put together some FAQ sheets after the first week because there was a lot of confusion as to what was going on. So we put those out with links to our website. My contact information, I've had people reach out to me on this thing to kind of explain. So we've tried to get as much of the word out as we can. In the bottom here, we've done wayfinding, so people that are new to this and they're trying to find where to go. Hopefully that's helpful. We've putting up, I don't know if they're up yet, but we have translated signs that were in Arabic, Russian, Mandarin, and Spanish. So we've really been trying to get the word out so that people know where to go. So it has been quite an effort, but I feel like the disruptions have probably minimized at this point because I think most people are on board with what we're doing. What we've also been doing, so last time I came, my plan had been to get the temporary office set up and then go into the visioning and start looking at the future before demolishing the office building. Due to health, safety, and welfare concerns, we decided it was best to remove that building. So while we do have it sealed up so nobody can get in, we just wanted to make sure for safety reasons that building came down. There was also an opportunity that came along. So there were 3 other structures in the city. There was a park shelter at Veterans Memorial Park. There was a building at 415 West Washington and 721 North Main. Those also needed to come down. So what we did is we were able to package the farmers market into that bigger package, which helped us get more interest in our proposals and I think helped us with our price as opposed to just going out on its own. So we were able to kind of take advantage of this opportunity and combine those. So as of this week, so the RFP was published. If you're curious, it was RFP 2441. It was 1,200 pages long. Due to a lot of things with abatement, there was a lot going on there. It is on the city's procurement site if you want to take a look at it. It is interesting to see how much has gone in. But we did get 6 proposals. We evaluated that. We have selected a contractor, and we'll be going to City Council at the August 8th meeting for the construction agreement approval by them. So we're hoping that that goes forward. One of the stipulations we put in for the farmers market exclusively is that the work needed to take place between January 2nd and April 26th of next year, which eliminates the need for any disruptions to the Wednesday market. Based on what our understanding and talking with different consultants, we think that the majority of the demolition work will take place over about 3 weeks. And work is not allowed to take place during any market events. So we are really trying to disrupt it as much, or disrupt it as least as possible, not as most, because people would just hate me. So we're trying to do the least amount of disruption as we can. Unfortunately, one of the things that comes up that we still need to talk through and kind of work through and nail down is about less than a quarter of the parking lot is going to need to be offline for safety issues and for having construction equipment and demolishing materials there. So that southwest corner, we may have to take that offline. We can still provide access with the drive aisle, but we will be losing some spaces in there. And details, once we have the contractor under an executed contract, we'll really get into talking about that, talking about the schedule, because right now we've got those 3 or 4 months, so when exactly that's going to fall in, and we'll be providing updates. And Stephanie's been kind of involved. We meet every week on things, so we'll make sure to alert this group as to anything going on, as well as the Carytown District Association. I know when we did the trailer, it took a little longer with the parking lot, so there was some issues with not communicating with them. I now have been more in contact with that group, so hopefully just trying to keep everyone on the same page. This has been a very fast-moving project just due to this being reactionary and not a planned thing. Next, I want to talk a little bit about the visioning and where we see this go. So our anticipated scope. So we have a really unique opportunity right now. I know there's been plans in the past. And while those may not have gone forward, we are at a point where something has to happen. This building has to come down. We have this ADA report that we'll have to work on these barriers, so we need to go through that. And we're having our asset management plan done that's going to show us what the market site as a whole needs to happen. So we are at a time where we can kind of look to see where this market goes. What are the needs and wants of vendors, the public, from a city side? What can we do? This is an amazing amenity for the city, right? So this is our chance to do something that's really great here. Where we will do is there'll be extensive community engagement. We'll be talking with vendors. We'll be talking with the public. What desires do they see for this space? There's going to be a lot of engagement. What that plan exactly is right now, we don't know. How this will work is we'll put out a request for a proposal. And there are firms that specialize in farmer market plans, and we will be listening to them. I don't want to go in with a very prescriptive scope. I want to hear from people that do this as to what the best approach is. So we know what we want, but we want to hear the best way to do that. We do have a steering committee. So we haven't really met on the visioning part. We've really been doing the temporary operations. We've been doing the demolition. And I'll get into the schedule here in just a second, but we do have the steering committee. So it'll be Josh Landefeld, our park manager, myself, park planner. We have Stephanie as the market manager. We have Remy Long as our deputy park manager. We have Jeff Bogue as the daily vendor market representative. So Jeb, you'll be helping us as we go through this. And then one other thing that we've just kind of confirmed is the Amber Miller with the Downtown Development Authority. They understand how important this project is going to be, and they would like to be involved as well, both from a financial standpoint and just helping us kind of with data and talking to different people and helping us get the word out. So they are very interested in what we're doing. Where we are is the schedule right now. So in March and April, as I talked about, we were moving those operations to the new building, or from the new building to where we are now. In May is when we engaged with our engineering consultant on the demolition to get that kind of included in those other projects, and we transitioned to the temporary trailer. In June and July, I've really spent a lot of my time in preparation for the demolition of this structure. We prepared our request for proposal, and we went through evaluation of contractors and reviewed all of the proposals to find the best company. So that's where we are now. Where we're moving to is in August, going to City Council with our construction agreement for demolition, and we'll be kicking off the visioning and kind of talking it out and seeing what we think we need to do, what we want to accomplish, and we'll be developing, and then moving into fall, we'll be developing that RFP, so that will be a request for a proposal. It'll go out on our standard procurement sites, but we'll also be sending it to other consultants that we know have worked on other market plans. So we've been kind of collecting proposals from other farmer market studies, other ones in the area, other ones nationally, to kind of get an idea of what others have done. We'll be reaching out specifically to get recommendations on who to send these RFPs to. That will be this fall. That will be open we'll have to determine what the good length of time is for it, but by spring we will have a consultant on board is what we're anticipating. What that will involve is we'll be reviewing proposals. There'll be at least one or maybe 2 rounds of interviews to make sure that we're finding the person that has our best fit. And then we'll go through the contract, we'll get them underway. And then summer of next year is when we are envisioning that we're kicking off engagement and really diving full into the visioning. And we'll see where that takes. And I didn't put an end date on here because I want to talk to the consultants and ask them what this is. We know that this is kind of a long, drawn-out process, and a lot of it is because it's reactionary. So when we typically plan for a project, we at least have it on our boards for 1 or 2 years before it comes, and we're able to do this research. We are put in a position where we have to kind of catch up, and we want to make sure we're taking our time to do this the right way. So there's an inconvenience now, which is unfortunate, but we're seeing this as a project that's going to make this market successful 40, 50 years down the road. And so we want to make sure that it's done right. And so that's where we're going with this. Like I said, I know it's been kind of a rough go as we've been going through this, but I do want to thank everyone for their patience and helping us kind of get underway with this. And also we will be coming back to this at the key points. So we'll be coming back to PMAC to explain when there is elements, when there's like deadlines or things that we know are coming up of importance. And Stephanie's been involved along the whole way, so she can provide updates at your monthly meetings. And then when it's appropriate, I can come in and do a deeper dive onto some of these things. So with that, that was kind of the overview of everything we've been working on, and I would be happy to take any questions that we have, and I know Remy's here as well and can help answer some. So.
I would like to put in the last word, if I could, before questions. Just as you're aware, the farmers market is part of a 163 park system. It's expansive, it's diverse, it has a lot of amenities, a lot of facilities. So we get a lot of surprises. You know, the top pool at Beer Park breaks down and it's closed to the public, and a playground is found to have this or that repair, and we have to put up caution tape around it and say, you can't play on this playground. We were not expecting an office building to have this dire of a need on this level, and this level of response required by any means. So in terms of surprises, it was a big one, but I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge and highlight the effort that Adam and Stephanie, Hannah, Lunia, all the staff have put in, because this was a big one. And market operations did not slow down. I was kind of having this like mental disconnect between the updates from Stephanie and the market report of all the activities that have been happening, and also knowing in the background all the work that's been happening on this end to deal with the transition that has come up unexpectedly. And it's just a real testament to the hard work and the dedication that the staff are bringing to make sure that the public doesn't, like they do, show up to the top pool and leave disappointed because it's closed. People are still showing up to market and having that experience. They might wonder where they get the tokens and where the staff are, but in general, this has been exceptionally impressive in my mind, from my perspective, watching it play out because of their dedication. So I just wanted to make note of that.
Well, thank you.
So questions?
So it sounds like it's going to be, I like the idea of them tearing it down over the winter, like especially after the end of the year, the Christmas season's over, and that sounds like the perfect scenario.
Yep.
With that being said, once it's tore down, you're talking about looking in 2025, summer of 25, you said, is when they're going to start like putting together a plan for the new building. So what's the plan for the area? Once the demolition happens, are they going to fill it with gravel? And are people going to be able to walk on it? Is it, okay.
Yeah, so that's a great question, because we really dove into that when we were going through the demolition documents. What we did is, so the sidewalk here that comes off of 4th Avenue, so we are going to pave this section so in concrete so that it's going to be one walk that goes out there, one accessible walk. So if you're coming off the sidewalk, you're coming right into the stall area. And so you'll have that straight shot. There's not going to be a barrier, anything like that. It will be just like an accessible walk that comes up there. And actually it would be a good thing, because accessibility is really hard out here. So we're going to have this accessible walk that gets you into there. So that will be really helpful. where the building and the parking lot are, so this section here, that's going to be paved in asphalt. So that is going to be, we're not going to stripe it as parking lots, but that'll be a great place for food trucks. That'll be a great place to kind of have a space that we can use, and it's a little flexible. It will be accessible. We're gonna, I mean, like I said, it's gonna be an asphalt pavement that comes around there. We did originally have it as aggregate, but when we got the prices back, we asked for an alternate on the asphalt, and we figured that cost was worth it to come in there and do that. Just because we know this is at least another year out before we get into it, so we'll be able to do that. And then the area that's kind of behind the sidewalk, that's going to be aggregate back there. It'll still be, you could walk on it, it's accessible. It's not like a paved surface, but it is something that you can walk on. So we will have that. So it'll be aggregate, it'll be concrete sidewalk, and then it'll be asphalt for the parking lot that kind of continues.
I have a question because I know that years ago there was a, visioning kind of process and then plan for a new market building, and that didn't happen because of funding. Is there, I know there's the ADA funding, but again, that's dispersed over the entire park system over 30 years. Is there any sense of where the money would be coming for to actually complete the stuff that gets visioned?
Yeah, so there is, so that's a couple different answers to this. One is there is funding that is set aside for the farmers market as we move forward. Josh Manfeld, our parks manager, I don't know exactly what that amount is, but he has told me that there is some funding there. I think an important part is we have the DDA on there. So they are willing, they want to be a partner in this as we go forward. And then what I think is important is with this visioning project, and what I've read from other markets, is we want to include a financial sustainability component to that, where they can come and help us find grants. They can help us kind of take a look at how our financials are and what we can expect, and they'll help us kind of scope in what future infrastructure will look like on the site. So it's kind of hard to know right now like what this will cost as we go through with it, but it is something that we are thinking about as we go forward. We'll have to pay for, we'll have the funding for the visioning. It's what comes out of that and how much that is in the estimate, and looking for funding and seeing what that will be. It is an issue at parks as a whole, with so many different projects that we have going on. Just making sure that we have the funds and can do it responsibly, and I think that's part of this study, is making sure that what we do is realistic. And to speak on the previous plans that have been done, we plan on kind of helping take those into account when we do the new visioning, so we'll share that information. I know a lot of those didn't go forward, not just because of money, but there were other things that were in play. And also as note, those other studies didn't have to be done there. It was not, there wasn't there was a need, there was desire. In this case, we actually have to do something because of that building, and so making sure that it's done financially, that we can afford this, and it's something that's responsible. That's part of this whole visioning. And like I said, the consultants that we will choose, they will have experience in kind of doing that kind of thing, and so we'll be relying on them to help us how much this costs, what's realistic, and then we'll have to take a look at funding as we go forward. That's a great question.
What's the role of the steering committee?
Yeah, so the role of the steering committee, so it's going to be development of that request for a proposal. So what exactly are we asking? And a lot of the other farmers markets, the studies, the asks are all over the place. It's, we don't have a market, we want one, to we have a market, it functions really great, we just need this small scope, and we want you to look at that. So I think what the steering committee is taking a look at what's been done, what we want to do, and then putting together an RFP, because it's really important when we put this out there that when we're getting proposals that come in, the consultants know what we're trying to achieve. Here we have a very well-functioning market, so it's something that we can kind of share with them, and it's really what the ask is. So the steering committee, we're going to meet to kind of develop what that is, and then once we get into getting proposals, we'll be evaluating, doing interviews, really doing a deep dive into who proposed. Like, so let's say we get 10 proposals, we will go through, read all of them, discuss them, probably narrow it down to, I don't know, 5 or 6 or however many make sense, do interviews, and then probably go down to another round of interviews. It all depends on how many proposals we get, but that steering committee is going to be really crucial in kind of helping identify who makes sense, who's going to be the best fit for us. Because you want to make sure not only do they have really good experience in that, but we have a good working relationship. When we did the ADA study, we had a steering committee that did it, and it included a lot of the members of the Commission on Disability Issues. And who we thought from like the proposal standpoint might be the best fit. When we did interviews, it's how you click and engage and you get a feel for it. And so that's why it's really important to kind of have the diverse operational expertise of what's going on, because we know this group is someone that we're going to have to trust as we go through with that. And I think that's the important part of that steering committee, is really helping us get a feel for who's going to help us do this.
I have a question for you. Along the same line, so I'm looking at your anticipated schedule. Do you think that steering committee, where does it start functioning here?
I am hoping that, in the next month.
Okay.
We're ramping up now that, so this week I've really been trying to get that contract underway for the demo. So all of my efforts have been put into that over the last few months. Now that that's done, I really want to start getting into that visioning and meet about it, and start looking at what have some of these other markets done, things like that, and start those discussions. So I'm hoping probably mid-August is probably where we're at to start that.
Cool.
And then we'd be meeting into September, October, getting that RFP out there. And then it would probably be open for probably 2 months is where we would. And then start of next year, we really start going into the evaluation of what we got proposals from and start that whole process. So that's why we're saying next spring, hopefully having someone on board. It does take quite a while to go through this RFP process. So yeah, mid-August is what I'm hoping.
So I'm going to probably say this numerous times during this whole project, but I just ask that everyone keep in mind, just keep in the back of your mind, that it's getting pretty tight down there for me to back my truck in and get unloaded. And I just want to keep that in mind whenever there's curb designs and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, that's when I imagine that there's this really extensive engagement with the vendors, Solo as a stakeholder, and I think those are the kind of things that really help define this. So as a park planner, landscape architect, I don't work on farmer market design. You are the experts at that, and so what we do is we take that information, and so please keep bringing that up, especially as we go through with this and we have the consultants on board, because it's only successful if it can be used. So farmer's market that you can't get produce or whatever to is not a good farmer's market.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I had raised questions before about another possible vendor, maybe an annual vendor. I can see how you don't want to get the steering committee too big, but I was just thinking about somebody who's been at the market a long time or drives a big truck like Jeff or something like that. We love Jeff, and we're so happy that he's on the steering committee. Just wondering if you needed another voice from another vendor.
Say that 5, 6 is already kind of pushing for the steering committee. But like I said, I think there's coming to PMAC and being involved there, and then there's lots of engagement as we kind of get into that. And that's where the design things will come from. The design won't be coming from the steering committee. The steering committee is really to help us get to that launching point. And so that's, I think, really what it's going to be key, to have a lot of voices kind of weighing in. And it'll be a much larger group that we're engaging for that. This is just kind of for that development. And this is where kind of a lot of voices that, I mean, they're wonderful to have, but oftentimes that will start to stall and slow out, especially where we kind of want to make sure we're getting this going and through the interview process. But yeah, I definitely say once we kind of really get into this, the more voices, that's going to be really beneficial.
That's great to hear that you're being intentional about that.
Yep.
So I guess the question too is, so when the RFP comes out, the product of that will be a plan. There will be then something people can iterate on. That's what these 10 things will be, 10 plans for what that layout would look like.
So it'll be yes and no.
Okay.
So I think the first part, and this is where I don't want to be too prescriptive with where this goes, but from what I've seen with other markets, a lot of it is focused on the engagement is first getting all of our data, the thoughts, the usage, understanding what those needs are, and where it goes from there. And I'll use the West Park band shell, which is another large project I've kind of been doing this similar thing on. What we did is, and this is that's a 2-year project where we've been at with things, but we found out there was a crack in the foundation of that one. It was built in a riverbed, essentially. So that wasn't great. But it lasted as long as it did, which is actually kind of a testament to how well that was built. But what we did is we did extensive engagement. So we did pop-ups that were at the park. We did surveys. We did webinars. We did stakeholder meetings. We did focus groups. And so we spent about a year collecting that information. And then where we go from that is our consultant is kind of helping us define a direction with different options, and we'll be coming up with our second round of engagement for that coming up soon, and that is showing like, how does this feel, what does this look like, what are the, like, they're going to come up with some scenarios that we can get feedback from the community from on that, and then from there we'll have a defined plan to move forward. Where this study goes will not, it will likely not come out with a plan and architectural documents for whatever comes. What's going to come is the vision, where then we would go out for probably a second RFP for a design firm to take that vision and actually do what we need to do. So yeah, so a lot of it is really gathering all of the information to help us make that decision to move forward. And then there will be probably the scenarios that's like, how does this feel? How does this feel? And then we kind of narrow it down. It's a very complex, like, layered thing where you have to come to that point for us all to kind of get in. And I wouldn't say like everyone will be on the same page, but this is successful when you get the majority of people wanting the same outcome. And I think a lot of times plans fail when not everyone has been engaged or had their voice, and you start to have certain groups not follow or be supportive of that plan, and then you don't have support when you go to move forward. So the whole goal is to kind of get everyone driving behind the same way. We know where we want to go, and that's how we get there. So that's how I envision this going as we go through with it.
And some of that comes too from, I remember when the sandbox or the sandlot project came forward, there were two tensions that really were challenging. One of them was that sometimes people were like, oh, we're spending all this money on consultants, but we're not actually spending on the building. And so they wanted to go faster. But the other part, then I heard from other folks coming through and saying, well, the consultant came on, they just like gave us a plan, and it wasn't what we wanted, but it was already so far down the design path that it wasn't really a choice, and so then they weren't happy about that. So
that's what stalls projects. Because then you have different viewpoints that both have a lot of support, and then it's hard. So ideally where we want to be is we want to take everyone's voice into account as we kind of move forward and do something where then like, hey, this is where we want it to go, and then the next part is like going for that design firm to actually help come up with our solution based on where we want to be.
And so like a charrette, where would that fit into this?
That could totally be, and again, I'll talk to the consultants on that one, but that's something that we've done in the past, where we're talking with the band shell. I think it's 3 or 4 options, and we kind of lay them out, and then it's like, what do you like about this? What don't you like about this? And we kind of go back and forth, and that kind of helps inform where we want to go. So I envision that this is probably how that will be. So in this next phase is that kind of thing. Anything else? Okay.
Look forward to seeing it.
Thank you.
So.
All right. Any other comments on the presentation? Before we get to the public commentation, first, item H, new business. Any new business non-agenda items?
Just want to ask again about the PMAC bylaws.
Oh, yes.
Any news?
I think that's on me. I think they've come to my camp, and I may have missed that amid the demo. Yeah.
That's why I keep asking.
Yeah. No. Thank
We're
you.
still curious.
Appreciate the
We'll be
reminder.
a little
Actually.
squeaky wheel.
Any other new business? Or things that need squeaking?
I just want to put a pin that sometime we should talk about another in-person meeting, since these are so wonderful.
Yep. No, it's very helpful. Absolutely. All right. Item J, second public comment, which is not limited to stuff on the items on the agenda. Anyone from the public like to comment? It can be also about anything.
Hi, my name is Christine Schiffer. I'm a vendor at the market for 30 years, I guess. I'm listening to all this. I'm excited about changes to the market. The thing I'm not excited about is the fact that we now have 3 new construction projects surrounding the market, which not only impedes the parking for our vendors, but it also impedes the parking for our customers. So is the city doing anything to remedy this? Are we working in coordination with Community High? Are we working with the county to be able to use their lots? Just curious, because if people can't get to the market, they're not going to buy stuff. And if vendors can't park at the market, we're not going to have produce or product for anybody to buy. And then everybody, I know that we want to make this a walkable city. I'm all for that. I also think that we need another bike rack and maybe a spot for people that have those cute little scooters that use all of the bike racks. That would be really nice if there was a separate place that they could park those. And if we do have another possibility of acquiring another bike rack, if they could, instead of having the bikes pointing towards the market, if they could be parallel to the market, that would help a lot in keeping them out of the way of people that store stuff behind their booths. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you.
Any other?
It was so weird not to speak at the beginning.
I was like looking at you.
I know, like, have I got laryngitis? Did I get hit in the head? Hi, my name is Debbie Marks. I've been a vendor at the Ann Arbor Farmers Market for 33 years. I'm there all year. Winter, Wednesdays, some Sundays. I could just cry how happy I am about this revitalization of the market, because it is something that we do want around for another 100 years. It's a draw to the city. It's a gem. And I'm glad we're going about this in a very diplomatic, strategic way, so that the input of the senior annual vendors that have been here for a minute, that really do get an idea of what's needed here from our aspect as vendors and customers too. I agree with Christine. The parking is an issue, and I've pleaded for years, before it was even at this state, that the city work with us a little bit, maybe within a half-mile radius on Saturday, free parking. I know they're probably not going to go for it, but we need to start somewhere. Also, if we could call on groups, athletic clubs, student clubs, people to maybe work for donations to carry things to the parking structure where people have to park now. Even valet parking. Just to throw some ideas out there that the community could work with us to alleviate the parking. I have a question. Who was the annual that gave up their seniority?
Dean Sell.
Who was it?
Dean Sell Farms.
Oh, okay. Also, we have the luxury of Ed here, our neighbor, who sees what goes on all the time when we're not at the market. And he said he saw people weeding. This is encouraging. Weeding in the median across from Community High.
Yeah, it was sometime this week.
Yeah. So, I don't know if that could, I don't know, but it's hope there. Yeah, I would like to see a September in-person meeting definitely, so we can get our quota of in-person meetings. It's really important. Another problem I have is, long ago, decades ago, the PMAC committee had more people on it. I don't understand why we've been trying to get more people on it, and then it lost interest and people dropped out. Why we have to wait so long and jump through the hoops to get more people on PMAC? We have great volunteers here. So anyway, I just like to see that kind of go through, you know. Let's push for that and make this more of a presence for a committee. And, at Ann Arbor Farms, I did see them taking the bird nests down. Ace Hardware, they're getting their cherry pickers and they're getting those bird nests down, so give me a call, Hannah. Like you said, you might be the one, and I'm volunteering right here, so thank you all for your time. The market is so important to the town and so many families that make a living with the market, and we appreciate everyone's extra effort here. Thank you so much for caring. See you at the market.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? All right. Seeing none, then we will adjourn for this at 6:51 p.m. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.